it's a common mythicist argument that Jesus is never mentioned in any Greek or Roman source of the first century. And yeah, I mean, I understand the argument, but I mean, either is Caiaphas, who is the most significant religious leader of the time, and either is Josephus, who's the best documented figure of the first century. He's never mentioned in any of these sources.
But these
so
guys,
why would Jesus be?
Well, because he's a miracle-working
No,
Superman.
I'm not. I don't think he was a miracle worker.
That's what I mean by saying the Daily Planet have reported on Clark Kent. He's an insignificant.
The fact that they don't mention a Jew from Palestine is not surprising.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but it doesn't show he didn't exist.
No, well, the idea is I fully agree.
Because you don't think it's an argument that Caiaphas didn't exist.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have been taken advantage of as a miracle-working demigod.
But I don't think he was a miracle-working.
But then it's no surprise that it indeed is no surprise we don't have mentions of
They don't
them.
mention any first-century Jew.
But if Jesus was that insignificant, is that a sufficient cause for
He's
Christianity?
not that insignificant. He's like every other Jew of the first century. They don't mention them. Let's move on because we only have a 10-minute. But actually, my next thing is about this point, where you were saying that that when you strip away the myth, it's an interesting argument. When you strip away the myth from these stories, there's like nothing left. It's kind of banal and uninteresting, and so why would you even tell the story? It's an interesting point. But the examples you picked, let me see. I can't even read my own. You picked a couple examples. For example, the feeding of the 5,000, I think, was one of your examples. But I mean, I don't think there was a feeding of the 5,000. So I don't see how this is an argument. I mean,
well, what is it that got beefed up into these miracle stories?
I don't think anything got beefed up into the miracle. I don't think that what you do is you read the miracle stories and then you strip away a miracle and you say, that's what happened. That's not my method. I've never used that method.
Those are like cameos of the whole idea that Jesus was just Joe Rabbi.
No, I don't think it was Joe Rabbi. Look, I wrote an entire book on what we can say about the historical Jesus. So, I don't know what it is, 250 pages long. So it's not as if there's nothing you can say. There's a lot you can say without conceding a single miracle. But the way you get there is not by reading the miracle of the 5,000 and saying that they really had a picnic. I mean, as you know, you know this as well as I do. And in the 19th century, there were historians like Heinrich Paulus who did just that. That's what they did. And Albert Schweitzer showed you can't do it that way. And today, nobody does it that way. So I think you're beating a straw man because that's not how any of us proceed. So, I mean, as you know, the way people go about it is not simply by stripping miraculous things out of the Gospels. What they do is they evaluate every story to see whether there's anything historical in it. For example, the baptism. Is there anything historical in there or not? The way you do it is not just by taking out the miracle bits, the way you were saying it happens with Josephus. So, okay, look, I do need to get on. So when you don't think that Jesus existed, I mean, then I'm sure you think that Jesus' mother, Mary, didn't exist. And so I'm just worrying about everyone else. I mean, did Mary Magdalene exist? Did Mary of Bethany exist? Did Judas Iscariot exist? Did the Apostle Peter exist? Did James and John, the son of Zebedee, exist? Or are all of these people made up?
They're either made up or had different significances, which, I mean, it's no surprise we hear nothing outside of these 2nd and 3rd century apocryphal acts about the apostles other than Peter, who's just a Dr. Watson character, like
that's
Ananda.
True, but in these sources, we don't hear anything about any first century Jews. So it doesn't mean they didn't exist. It means they don't talk about them. So.
Well, if these characters are bit players in something that you have reason to think is fictitious, and that's the case I make with examining all these items, then there's no particular reason to think that there was a Peter, especially since he appears.
Well, no, Peter does. I mean, Paul knows Peter. Paul tells us. Okay, we're time. Thank you very much.